Hi, welcome to another episode of Veterans Health Today. Here is where you learn about the services, programs, and benefits offered at the Dayton VA Medical Center. I'm your host, Public Affairs Officer Rhonda Moore. Dayton is home to not only one of the first VA campuses, but it's also a state-of-the-art medical facility, offering top-quality care to those veterans in need. Our heritage dates to President Abraham Lincoln, who signed legislation creating our campus, and now what's the modern VA. Our mission comes from his words, to care for him who shall have borne the battle. We continue that tradition today through the employment of modern medical services, many of which are geared to the special needs of our veterans. A new law now in effect expands VA health care and benefits to veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. It's called the PACT Act. And joining me now to talk about it is Mark Rohner, and he is the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, or IDES, Program Manager. So Mark, tell me what that long title means and what is your job?
Okay. Basically, my job, I run the VA DoD Transition Center over at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and my primary function is active duty folks that are currently in the process of separating out of the military, helping them transition from military to civilian life, and filing and obtaining VA benefits.
How does your job relate to the PACT Act then?
Okay, with the PACT Act, my involvement is because a good portion of the PACT Act has to do with compensation and pension, and the active duty folks getting out and filing for VA benefits are enrolling for compensation through Veteran Benefits Administration, so it's handling it.
Mark, what does the PACT Act stand for?
Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxins. Basically what that means is the PACT Act is looking to veterans that were exposed to any type of environmental toxin exposure and how has it affected them.
All right, well, before I ask you any more questions, we want to go ahead and take a look at a short video from the Undersecretary, the VA Undersecretary of Health.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sharif Elnahal, and I am proud to lead the Veterans Health Administration. The PACT Act is one of the largest healthcare and benefits expansions in VA's history. This new law expands and extends eligibility for VA healthcare for veterans with toxic exposures. It adds more than 20 new presumptive conditions for burn pits and other toxic exposures, as well as more presumptive exposure locations for Agent Orange and radiation. Thanks to the PACT Act, every veteran enrolled in VA healthcare will now get a toxic exposure screening. PACT Act will also help us improve research, employee education, and treatment related to toxic exposures.
That was a good short version explanation of what the PACT Act is. So tell me, Mark, when did the PACT Act become law?
PACT Act got signed into law on August 10th by President Biden. And basically what the PACT Act does, it's the most significant expansion and legislation in the VA's history since its inception. It's basically opening up service connection, eligibility for health care to millions of veterans. Your Gulf War veterans, post 9/11 veterans, Vietnam veterans are the three primary demographic groups that are affected by this PACT Act.
And it was named for someone from Ohio, correct?
Yeah, it's named after Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson. He was an Ohio National Guardsman who served in Kosovo and Iraq, and he was from Pickerington, Ohio. He unfortunately passed in May of 2020.
And you kind of mentioned again who's eligible. You were saying veterans from Gulf War, veterans from Vietnam, and post 9/11 veterans. Basically what the PACT Act does is it expands and added a list of presumptive conditions for veterans that served in the Gulf War and Vietnam post 9/11 for possible service connection.
It expands the eligibility criteria for veterans of post 9/11, the Gulf War, the Vietnam. It expands that for VHA eligibility, and it also adds for the registries, the VHA healthcare registries, a way for veterans to become educated about their own individual health, what all they were exposed to, and different data collection for the VA.
And you said VHA. Some people may not understand what that is. They just think VA.
Yeah. The VA has three primary branches. You have Veteran Benefits Administration. They're generally the ones who handle service connection, the monetary monthly checks that you might receive from the VA. You have VHA Healthcare. That's the Dayton VA, the Community C-Box, the healthcare centers, and then you have the National Cemetery. VBA has service connection and presumptive conditions. And what a presumptive condition is when you have a medical condition that it is presumed as a result of your time in the military, therefore presumptive. In order for a veteran to file for benefits and obtain service connection, there has to be a criteria that has to be met. They have to have a disability, a medical condition. They have to have served honorably, and then they have to have record that this disease, illness was incurred or aggravated during their military service. Now, normally that would mean your service treatment records are going to have to show that you were diagnosed or were complaining about this condition. With a presumed condition, usually these are conditions that are going to develop later on in life and as a result of some type of toxin or exposure. And all that has to happen is that burden of proof that it was related to the military has been removed for the veteran. If you served, your DD-214 shows that you were in this area at this time and you have this health condition, you can file for those VA benefits and be granted service connection. If it's not a presumed condition, that's where that burden of proof kind of falls on the veteran to try to show, I have this condition and here's why it's related to my time in the military. That veteran has to do that.
Does the veteran have to go out of their way to prove
No.
that they, so that takes, the PACT Act takes the burden off of the veteran having to do that?
Correct. The PACT Act implemented 23 cancers for the Gulf War and post 9/11. For your Vietnam veterans, it added MUGUS, which is monoglonopathy, and then hypertension. Hypertension is a really big one for the Vietnam veterans. Mm-hmm. There's over 500,000 veterans, Vietnam veterans, are affected by the hypertension. So that means if you served in Vietnam and you have hypertension, you can now become service connected for that, even though you may have just this year been diagnosed with hypertension. It will be presumed it was because of your time in the military.
Even though it was that many years ago?
Correct. Presume that burden of proof has been removed from the veteran.
And is there any limit, like how long ago that happened?
Nope. On a presumptive condition, it is based on certain criteria. You were involved or served in this area at this time frame. Usually a DD-214 is going to show that. Mm-hmm. And then you have to have the diagnosed medical condition. If you don't have the condition, you don't file for it.
Right. And so what are some of the conditions that we're seeing from veterans that are presumptive?
Lung cancer. Lung cancers is a big one. Brain cancer, pancreatic cancer, any cancer of the reproductive system, cancers of the neck. Thyroid cancer is very common, or that's a trend that we're seeing. And that's where being service connected for a disability is different than being on a VHA health registry. But where these presumptives come into play is veterans signing up for registries. A registry is governed by Veterans Health Administration, It is to serve twofold. One, data collection for the VA. These veterans that were stationed at this base at this time frame are now coming down with this type of condition. It's been the average, it's taken them 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to develop. People that were at this base 300 miles north, they're coming down with this and this type of condition. Helps the VA on data collection. And this is where they then use this data to possibly create presumptive conditions. So that is governed by VHA. And the other purpose that it serves is to help the veteran become knowledgeable about their health, where they served. These are some of the health conditions if they don't have, and hopefully they never do, but if they ever do develop, they can become more knowledgeable about their own health. Go back, whether it's a VA doctor or some other doctor. Hey doc, I'm starting to have these type of symptoms. I served over in Iraq. When I saw an environmental specialist, he mentioned I might have to worry about this or I might develop some of these symptoms. It could possibly be because of this exposure and could develop into this type of disease.
So are you saying that a veteran has to sign up for the registry in addition to signing up for the health care?
The registry is entirely volunteer basis, but that is one way that they can collect data. And with the PACT Act, it added expanded the registry criteria of where you can serve. It also added for presumptive conditions, the 23 presumptives, but it also expanded the different countries that they were in. Jordan, Egypt, those are two very common ones previously to the PACT Act. If you had what's known as Gulf War illness, that was not considered presumptive for people that served in those two areas. So therefore, if they had a medical condition, headaches is a possible presumptive of Gulf War illness. If they're experiencing headaches and they served in Jordan, they had the burden of proof that my headaches are related to my time in the military and over in Jordan. That was put on the veteran. Whereas if you were in Iraq, it was already a Gulf War illness, you didn't have to prove that. Now for those veterans, Jordan, Egypt, Bahrain, they no longer have to prove that.
Now what if the veteran tried once before to get health care benefits from the VA, and now we have the PACT Act? What do they have to do if they were denied before?
The VA at this time is not going through previously denied claims and opening those up. The veteran will need to file a claim. It's a supplemental claim, and I would highly encourage any veteran that was previously denied for a condition that is now falls under the jurisdiction of the PACT Act to file a supplemental claim, but also go with a veteran service officer or your county veteran services. You can file on your own. However, if you use an organization, they can make sure you are submitting on the correct forms, you're providing the correct information that is needed, so that way your claim can go through the first time much smoother, much faster, much easier.
So the VSOs are trained in this already, and they know.
That is part of what Veteran Service Organization exists for. The AMVETS, the American Legion, the DAV, your Veteran County Services. They're more than just a local hangout for fellow veterans. They have two primary services. The one is to assist the veteran to lobby for veteran causes and affairs at a legislative level, but also to help that veteran navigate the bureaucracy of the VA system, filing for their VA benefits.
Okay, so talking about the claims, explain what a regular claim is versus a supplemental claim, because what if someone now says, maybe this is why I've experienced this, that, and the other, and I've never signed up for VA or never even tried to get VA care. So would that person fill out a regular claim, and then the person who had tried before was denied fill out the supplemental?
Correct. Those are two types of claims. With previously denied, and it's the government, different forms, different things have to be on certain forms. if they were previously denied, well, one of the things that's already happened, they've already filed for a claim. Veteran Benefits already has a copy of their DD-214. They already have their service treatment records. They would have had some medical records since they've been out if they provided those when they originally filed. If they've never ever filed for a condition before, they may not have your service treatment records, your military personnel records, your DD-214s, all those different types of paperwork, they're not on there. So from a claims processing standpoint, they're handled completely different. They are submitted on different forms, and even though they go to Veteran Benefits, once Veteran Benefits receives it, it then splits off to different areas depending on what needs done. There's no claims development for a supplemental claim. They already have pretty much everything. They're just taking a quick look at this and reopening it. A new claim they've never filed, they have to obtain all those records and things.
How long does it take if someone were to fill out a claim, say for the first time? How long does it take, or even I guess you could say for the presumptive one also, before they know if they've been accepted?
So the VA, for lack of a better term, they have 1 year to flip that claim. However, the current average is about 125 days. They're taking from start to finish. That said, claims are coming in with the PACT Act because this affects over 5 million veterans are affected by this. There's lots of claims coming in. The VA is ramping up. They're hiring more officials, training, but it is causing a little bit of backlog.
Are they expecting 5 million new veterans to sign up nationwide? And how many would you think for the Dayton VA?
We're expecting an average of about 2,000 claims a year increase for the next 3 years to be coming in, and hopefully those are all going to roll into enrollment into the VHA.
Does it cost anything for a veteran to try to get the benefit?
No. To file a claim costs nothing. To use a VSO costs nothing. To sign up for VHA health care, if you're eligible, costs you nothing. You may have a copay, and that's going to be based upon a couple of factors. Your income level, if you have a service-connected condition, what is that total percentage, or are you being seen and treated for a service-connected condition or a condition as a result of your military? That is free health care for you. You may have, if you have pulmonary issues and you were exposed to burn pits, you're going to be eligible for some free care through the VA. Now, if you have a bum knee and that currently is not service connected, or you have a low enough percentage of your service connection, you may have to have a copay if you were ordered some medication or things like that. But that all factors into very case specific, but there is no out-of-pocket expenses for premiums or anything like that for VHA healthcare.
And how does the veteran get started with this? What are the steps?
A couple different steps. If they want to file a claim, again, they can do it themselves at va.gov or go to their local county veteran services or VSO to file a claim for service connection. If they're interested in filing and signing up for VHA healthcare, they can go to the Dayton VA or any of our CBOCs. They need a copy of their DD-214, a government-approved ID, your driver's license, and then there is some paperwork that we're going to have them fill out, and during that paperwork it's going to ask some financial information. So if they have updated information on their most recent tax return, or at least know what that information was, that'll be helpful because they're going to be asked to do that. Or if they are interested in a registry assessment, the Airborne Hazards Open Burn Pit Registry, the Agent Orange Registry, the Gulf War Registry, they can contact the Dayton VA's Environmental Health Coordinator at the Dayton VA's number and then extension 3259. If they're already in our system, we're going to go ahead and get them scheduled. If they're not in our system yet, we'll go ahead and mail out some enrollment packet information for them to fill out and then either mail back to us or come in person to enrollment and eligibility, get loaded in our system, and then we'll get them scheduled for an appointment.
Is there a cutoff date to apply for the PACT Act?
For VA service-connected benefits, there is no cutoff date. You can apply anytime. For VHA healthcare, with the PACT Act, it used to be at 5 years coming post-deployment from a hostile area. That would be if you're in the Gulf War area. The PACT Act expanded it to 10 years. If you are now out past 10 years of coming off that active duty status, you have until October 31st of 2023 to come to the VA with those forms and get enrolled. If you are still within that 10 years, it's whenever that 10 years is going to be up.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you. And we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about the spousal benefits under the PACT Act. Back after this public service announcement.
America's veterans have sacrificed so much to protect our freedoms. And we need to show our gratitude. But how? Well, we can volunteer at a VA medical center or outpatient clinic, at a VA community living center, a veterans benefits office, or at one of our national cemeteries. We can also contribute online to help support veterans programs. Let's show our nation's heroes just how much we care. Volunteer or donate today to thank America's veterans.
We are back and talking about the PACT Act with Mark Rohner with the Dayton VA. And I know that every veteran who comes to the Dayton VA right now, they are being screened when they have a doctor's appointment for toxins, right? So kind of explain what that is and what happens.
It's primarily being done through your primary care and during a primary care appointment, but it can be done in some specialty clinics. But basically, it's the veteran's going to be asked if they have any types of, were exposed to any type of toxins during their military time. It doesn't have to be a formal registry or burn pits. Asbestos is a very common exposure. If they've been exposed to anything, and then if they have, okay, what were you exposed to, and then what are your concerns as a result of that? Are you concerned about your health? Or are we currently already meeting those healthcare needs? Are you interested in talking to Veteran Benefits Administration or VSO about filing for benefits? Or would you like to see one of our environmental toxic exposure specialists to have a more thorough assessment done? Since we started doing the screening, which was November 8th of 2022, we've handled just under 15,000 veterans. Out of that 15,000 veterans, we currently have over 6,000 have endorsed exposure and concerns of exposure. And then from that, we have just under 2,500 have been referred to our environmental registry program for a little more detailed workup.
Okay, so but for the most part, when you say screened, you mean basically they're just being asked questions about
Correct.
it.
They're just being asked questions. There is no hard, fast test,
Right.
blood work to be done. I was exposed to this. It's just a series of questions being asked during an appointment. Usually will take about 5 minutes.
What about someone who is not enrolled at the Dayton VA? Can they get screened for that?
Currently, at this time, it is only for enrolled veterans in VHA healthcare system. If a veteran is currently not enrolled, I would encourage them to go to the Dayton VA or one of the CBOCs. Again, bring that DD-214 government ID. We're going to have them fill out a form and see if they are eligible. But right now, as the law was written, it is for enrolled veterans.
Okay. Now let's talk about spouses or survivors. They are eligible for
Correct.
benefits under the PACT Act as well, right?
With the PACT Act, it expanded 23 cancers. Well, it's common knowledge, unfortunately, a lot of people succumb to cancers. So if a spouse, their spouse, their veteran, passed away of a cancer that is now on that presumptive listing, and they served post 9/11, the Gulf War, we would encourage them, they would want to see and file for DIC benefits. They can receive a monthly compensation depending on the situation. They can also possibly be eligible for some health care benefits themselves. If there's young children under the age of 18, they can file as well. In addition to, if the veteran has since passed, they've already had their burial benefits, and the family members had some out-of-pocket expenses for the burial, they can submit for reimbursement for that.
You said DIC. What do you mean by that?
Dependent Indemnity Compensation.
Okay.
But it's more commonly known survivor benefits. If you pass away of a service-connected condition, again, your spouse, they can be eligible for some benefits as well, monthly compensation, so that can maybe help a little bit knowing their loved ones being taken care of.
How far back does this go where someone can get benefits as spouse?
If it's a presumptive condition now, and the death certificate shows, that they died of, or passed away, unfortunately, of this condition on the death certificate, yeah, they can certainly file.
All right, good information.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are going to take one more break, and we'll be back with more information on who to contact to apply for benefits under the PACT Act.
A lot of us had trouble when we got back, adjusting to family life and our jobs.
Order up. When I want to give up, I try to focus on getting to the next minute, then the next hour, and the next day.
It might not seem like it right now, but there are people out there like me who want to listen and support you for the long haul.
And I found someone to talk to, someone who listened.
You are not alone.
We are back talking about the PACT Act, which became effective in January, talking with Mark Rohner with the Dayton VA. And Mark, where should veterans go if they want more information about the PACT Act?
They can go to va.gov/PACT, P-A-C-T. I would tell them to be aware, if you just go there by Google, there are other websites that are run by outside companies and everything. You want to make sure you go to the one that is va.gov. That is the VA official website to go. Lots of information on there. They can go, again, to a VSO, their county representative. They can contact the Dayton VA. My extension is the Dayton VA's number, and then extension 5807. If they have a question about enrollment eligibility, Dayton VA's primary number, and then 5336. If they have a question about or concern with toxic exposure and being on a registry, or if they are already on a registry, they can Dayton VA, and then extension 3259.
All right. What is the main thing, Mark, that you want people to take away from this?
With the PACT Act, it expands a lot of eligibility. It increases for service connection. Apply for health care. Apply for service connection if you have any medical conditions. But also, just because a condition is not considered presumptive does not mean you shouldn't apply for it if you feel this is because of your time in the military. If you might have a little bit of the burden of proof to show and make that nexus, that connection to your time in the military, if you were not complaining or symptoms while in the military, that's documented in your medical records. However, if enough veterans are filing and claiming for the same things, that's where patterns may arise, and then eventually you might be helping your other fellow veteran who later on those do become presumptive conditions. It took half a century for hypertension to become a presumptive condition. but now that's affecting over 500,000, 500,000 Vietnam veterans now are eligible for that service connection. So
apply. That's
Yeah.
really the thing that we want. We want more people to apply, and we're trying to
Correct.
help as many people out there
Yeah.
with their health needs as possible.
apply. And you might get denied, but then later on there's a process to do that, and then later on, if you get granted, more people get granted, and it just all works out to help you and benefit the other veterans.
Mark, you've given us a wealth of information today, and we really appreciate it, and we thank you so much for being here and explaining the PACT Act.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that is another edition of Veterans Health Today. Veterans, if you want information about enrolling at the Dayton VA, you're encouraged to call the Medical Center at 937-268-6511, extension 2035. Or you can call one of our 5 community-based outpatient clinics, or CBOCs, and you see the numbers there on your screen. Thank you so much for watching this program, and veterans, thank you for serving a grateful nation. We'll see you next time.